The Philadelphia 76ers franchise has some life after securing the number 3 overall pick and having a chance to add an impact prospect. And now we've talked plenty about Ace Bailey out of Rutgers as a potential target, but what if it is his teammate Dylan Harper that is on the board at 3 there? Do you want to discuss how the Sixers should take on this situation? If they should have some concern about overlapping skill sets from a guard perspective, we do know that Dylan Harper is sort of a ball dominant guard, and I'm going to dive into a little bit of a deeper scouting report here. But to speak about the draft as a whole, we've talked for months, debatably years, how Cooper Flagg is the clear-cut number 1 overall pick. But is the number 2 pick as cemented as it is sort of being talked about here? Now, obviously, Dylan Harper is the consensus number 2 overall pick, and these signs are pointing towards the San Antonio Spurs selecting him. But sometimes these signs, the vibes, the indications that are being made publicly are not exactly what is going on behind closed doors. And I think a lot of times the boards that these teams are working with look a lot different than some of the mock drafts that you and I may see publicly here. So I do want to talk through that situation, that as the draft unfolds, we've sort of spoken about the draft beginning at the Sixers. But what if it begins at the Spurs and they do find a prospect that they fall in love with and prefer? And for the Spurs' exact perspective here, is it the best thing to take a ball dominant guard as you have 2 guys in De'Aaron Fox and Rookie of the Year Stephon Castle already pretty much locking down that backcourt here? Obviously, Victor Wembanyama being the clear-cut centerpiece and not ruling out them taking a big splash to trade this pick. Maybe they get involved in the Giannis Antetokounmpo sweepstakes there, or Kevin Durant has interest in going down to San Antonio. They have the ammunition if they want to go that direction, but in all these situations, want to talk through if it is the Sixers on the board at 3, should Dylan Harper be the guy? So let's do it to start off with reading a little bit of a write-up here from The Ringer here, talking about the draft content. And the article writes, shout out to Kyle J. Mann, elite footwork in the paint, and by the way, a 6'6 guard, 215 pounds, so a big prospect from a guard perspective. And the write-up states, elite footwork in the paint is a huge plus for any position, but it's a literal game changer for a guard in the playoffs. It means that their effectiveness around the basket isn't dependent on ball-to-the-wall speed, and they can continue to generate quality possessions when the game slows down and becomes a half-court battle. Harper has that kind of footwork along with terrific positional size and the ability to guard multiple positions. He might not play with San Antonio's first unit right away, given that the team just traded for De'Aaron Fox at the deadline, but his size will allow him to play next to any combination of Fox, Stephon Castle, or Devin Vassell. Ultimately, taking Harper is the smart asset play. Large lead handles with the upside to be an offensive hub are pretty favorable square one players for any team that might be looking to start over. Now, with this report here overall, a lot of good stuff to dive into. This is pretty specific and catered to the Spurs. To give a little bit more of an idea of who he is as a prospect, do want to give a shout out to Ben Pfeiffer here, who does some awesome draft breakdown. You can kind of see a little bit of how he grades out in a number of specific categories, but do want to take this just hypothetically from the Sixers perspective. I personally feel, and again, we have plenty of time to the draft, so we're going to walk through every single situation and see, and my mind could be changed if something changes until that point. I'm still getting into my early deep dive of each of these guys, so who knows, my mind could be changed, but ultimately currently I feel the top 3 of the board is Cooper Flagg and then the 2 Rutgers kids. And I do think, me personally, it is pretty clearly Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, and Ace Bailey there. I can see the argument for VJ Edgecombe as well. We also got a report of the Sixers meeting with Jeremiah Fears, which I want to dive a little bit deeper into in a separate video there. But the point being that, to me, those are the top 3 in this draft, and I think the Sixers should take who's left. Now, when speaking about Dylan Harper specifically, the biggest concern with that is that he is a ball-dominant guard here. And when you have a guy like Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain already as foundational piece of this Sixers draft picks, or Sixers franchise, should that give this organization pause? Well, my answer to that directly would be absolutely not. For starters, with Harper specifically, I think there's a bit more off-ball than he gets credit. That there is some instincts as an off-ball cutter. There were situations with Rutgers where it was Ace Bailey, go cook, and for all the Ace Bailey skeptics out there, wasn't the best at the go cooking. 0.87 points per possession in isolation. You want better than that from a guy, and we have to wear that head on. Now, I'm an Ace believer and have made that quite clear, but I do think that these guys are pretty connected in the evaluation process under the premise that they both kind of suffered from difficult circumstances. It was not the best coaching, and they had, with all due respect to these guys, basically zeros around them. I believe they had one other player on roster shooting over 30% from 3. No other members of the roster shooting above 50% from an effective field goal percentage there. The point being, there weren't these talented shot makers that they could surround themselves that would give respect from a defensive perspective or really help them to run effective offense. Now, each of these guys is sort of being asked about each other in addition to themselves, which I do think is interesting. I did want to pull up this quote here from our guy Dylan Harper for this specific video. He was initially asked about Ace Bailey, and he said, quote, "From a scoring perspective, he's 6'10", he sees over everyone. I probably haven't seen a scorer better than him. A young T-Mac," and Tracy McGrady there. And then he was asked about his own player comparisons there. He said, "Probably James Harden, Cade Cunningham, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander." Some large shoes that he is shoving himself into there, but I think for the right reasons. I mean, obviously you don't want these guys to sell themselves short, and none of these guys are carbon copies here. Dylan Harper specifically, I've seen a lot of the James Harden comparisons, and I can squint and see it a little bit, as Daryl Morey likes to say there, but I don't think for starters he's as heliocentric or isocentric as Harden certainly is, and there's a lot more to Bailey both as a defender and as an ability off ball in the flow of the offense, that he will beat you with backdoor cuts and has shown that at Rutgers, even with having a pretty untalented supporting cast. And when we see the improved spacing at the NBA level, I can see that skill set flourishing at a larger extent there. Now, as far as a couple other points that I did want to pull up here, this quote here, or not quote, I apologize. Tyrese Maxey dropping a little like on our guy RB Philly Takes tweet. So he tweeted out a video that was of both Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey going through a little workout here. That is encouraging to me. And Maxey also had a nice little quote of "Philly fans never change," tweeting out that you guys deserve for us to be in the back of playoffs. We're going to turn things around, get back in track. Love all of that, but I did think that was worth noting that with me sitting here kind of hyping up each of these Rutgers guys, and I am an Ace guy sort of from a fit perspective for this Sixers team, but I do think there's a clear idea of what Dylan Harper is. But to circle it back here, you take whichever one of these guys is available is how I personally feel. You should not specifically be picking for fit, and I don't think I view either of these guys under that lens here. Do I think there's a clean fit for Ace Bailey in this Sixers team? I absolutely do. I think you can pretty much load up a modern NBA roster with as many 6'7" to 6'10" wings, guys that are functional with the ball, can defend multiple positions at a high level, and he falls under that umbrella. For Dylan Harper here, I also think there's a world where he can coexist with both Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, and with that being the case here, we also shouldn't rush this decision if that is not a conclusion. So if the worst case scenario is true, and you draft this guy and it does not work, you can still hang on to all three of these guys and break them up when the time is appropriate. If we know anything about the modern NBA, there is always that next star on the market, and these are three guys that could be needle movers from a trade package perspective. Now, granted, the focus has to be on building out a competent basketball team, and the Sixers still have some work to do in that regard. That this third pick is a huge just chance at increasing their odds, or it's taking a step in that direction here, but they do have to get this correct here. But my whole opinion is, don't overthink it. If one of these guys drops in your lap, you take them 10 times out of 10. And if that is Dylan Harper there, you should feel pretty damn good about that being the outlook here. So we will see what ultimately happens. To put it on the record here, it does feel pretty clear that the draft is being viewed as Cooper Flag 1, Dylan Harper 2, and then everyone else here. And all indications do seem to be that the Spurs are targeting Dylan Harper there at that second pick. But with all that being said, general managers lie, man, and at this point in the game, there is no reason to give off anything other than smoke signals here, and I want to bring that point up as well in regards to the Sixers' third pick. Me personally, very much in favor of them keeping the pick, but why would Daryl Morey say he's going to trade it if he's interested in trading? He's going to keep that phone line open. He's going to evaluate what their full options are, so don't entirely rule that out. I'm against that game plan, and I'm going to dive into why in some other videos as well, but if Dylan Harper is there at 3, you take him and should feel great about it is my overall perspective. Do want to hear from you guys if you think differently about that in the comments, so make sure you're dropping those below. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in this video here. It is an exciting time in the Sixers world for each of us, having a a future piece to get excited and rally around, and Tyrese Maxey seemingly doing the same exact thing there. So drop your thoughts on Dylan Harper below. If he is on the board of the third pick, would you make that selection, or do you have too much fear in the overlap with the guard dominance in Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, and let me not forget about Quentin Grimes as well. So drop those thoughts below. I understand the concern, but for me, that's kind of where I'm at right now. At this point in the game, with still a month to go until the NBA draft, so things could change until that point, but I do believe you take the best player available, and I do think it is going to be one of those two Rutgers cats there. So drop your thoughts below. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. Make sure you drop a like on this video if you have not already. Drop a subscribe if you have not done that in your comments below. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.